focusing on product strategies. Please join me in welcoming Emma Booten. She will share her personal story with us as an example of the power of crowdfunding. Emma will also explain how crowdsourcing and crowdfunding can affect supply and demand. Emma Booten.
On one warm evening in July 2008, I was working on Excel. As Lior said, you all love Excel. But I was fighting with it. I was fighting with the Excel. I just wanted to get my thoughts done, and I didn't find a way to do it properly. I thought to myself, this is absurd. Why? Why isn't there something just goes and clicks the entire set of transactions and let me be with my thoughts? So I went to sleep, and I got up the next morning and I said, well, if there is no such thing, I'll just invent it. It's a startup. So on September 22nd, 2008, that specific day that Lehman Brothers have announced their Chapter 11 bankruptcy, I found myself fundraising for my new startup. But a probable combination of a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of stupidity, and probably a lot of luck, I secured a few millions to drive my startup forward. Within 1 year, the product was out, we had technology, we had innovation. Yes, that's what I felt when I was delivering the product on stages around the world. Everybody was happy. I was living the road of an entrepreneur, walking on the red carpet. My employees were happy, my investors were happy, it was great. But then 3 years later, because of a business disagreement with my investors, I was forced out of my company. A company that I built with my 2 hands and for which I lived and breathed. And it was awful. It was awful because I felt as if the red carpet I was walking on just slipped beneath my feet. And I didn't know what to do then. I'm an entrepreneur, what am I going to do now? Find a job? What am I going to work as? So I mentally crashed. And as the answers to many life crashes is watching a lot of TV. So I watched TV and I watched TV, and at one point I got up. I got up and I started writing. I started writing my thoughts, my experience, my knowledge, everything. I diffused just everything on paper. And I thought, hell, why not make a book out of it? But before I go through a mass expense of writing a book and printing it and publishing it, where am I going to get that money from? So I thought about crowdfunding as a way of financing the book by selling copies in advance. I called my colleagues, the founders of Mimuna, a crowdfunding platform in Israel, and I told them that I would like to put up a campaign. So they said to me, for a book that hasn't been written yet, that has been never done before. But hell, why not? It's a startup, let's do it. So we put up a campaign, and normally they said it takes 2 months to fundraise. I said 2 months? That's like having a startup in dividend. Too long, 3 weeks. 3 weeks, within 3 weeks, I sold enough copies that by Israeli standards made the book a bestseller, and I raised almost all the money I needed to publish the book. So I said to myself, this is great. Now I have, the crowd told me that they wanted a book, and now I have 4 months to write it, edit it, publish it, print it, and deliver it to my readers. 4 months? That's a long time. It's like having a startup pivoted and exited. No worries. I have a deadline. And a deadline, as you all know, is the most effective way of doing things. So the book was out, it was great. Copies are being sold, it's being translated to English, even Korean. But then I said to myself, this is great, but what have I learned from this crowdfunding experience? How can I still change the world? And then for one thing, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with analyzing behaviors and detecting patterns. And the crowdfunding experience taught me that there is a new way of looking into our economy, that it is affecting our economy. If you think about it, until today, we were good consumers because we were buying things, many things, mass-produced things because they're on sale, because we just want them Today, the people are willing to buy things and wait until they actually get them. And wait for a few months. This is so unorthodox. It's like if I were to tell you, I'm about to write a comics book, but I will do it only if you will finance it way in advance. Would you do it? Well, apparently, thousands of people invest millions of dollars into comic books. These are the top 6 comic book projects that were on Kickstarter. The first one even raised more than $1 million. What if I to tell you that I will put up a dance show? Only if you'll finance it in advance. Would you do it? And apparently, dance shows are being financed, and these are only 3 examples out of many on Kickstarter. But let's take it a step further. What if I were to tell you that I'm going to create an artwork only if you will finance it? And apparently, artwork is being financed. So people are willing to buy things, support things, and obtain things way in advance, not just by voting, but by buying. So what I found out about fundraising, crowdfunding, that this is much bigger. This is much bigger because there is a change in mindset. If up until today, we were going to see performing arts because critics were telling us this is good, today we decide what art is. Artists no longer have to go through sifting of curators and producers. They simply can put up their artwork on platforms such as Indiegogo and Kickstarter and other crowdfunding platforms, and we, the crowd, decide whether this is art. If up until today the mindset was to purchase many things because they're on sale, because they're mass-produced, because we just want them, today we're willing to buy things way in advance. This is an example of a Pebble watch that sold for over $10 million. People just ordered it because they wanted it. So people are willing to buy and wait for things before they get them. And this is a great change. This is not a change in consumer behavior. This is a change in mindset that affects the whole way we look at supply and demand in the world. And this is occurring because this is naturally empowers consumers to buy things from people they care about for a fair price. It naturally empowers the arts because we decide what art is. It naturally empowers small businesses because they no longer need a lot of money to see what will succeed. They can do it with smaller amounts. But mostly, it empowers the earth because it reduces consumption waste. And today, we're at the highest level of consumption it has ever been. So now I know today that I don't need a great startup and a new technology to change the world. I can start with one step, which is buying from peers that I really love their work, and they love to produce things for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.